We start off with the bombshell breaking in just the last few moments. The Department of Justice challenging the ruling on the AT&T Time Warner deal. Let's get straight to Julia Boorstin in Sun Valley, Idaho for all the details. Julia.
Well, Melissa, the Department of Justice saying it will appeal federal Judge Leon's approval of AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner. The appeal is likely, like the original suit to block the case, is on antitrust grounds. And we just seconds ago got a response from Time Warner. Got a response from AT&T. AT&T saying the court's decision could hardly have been more thorough, fact-based, and well-reasoned. While the losing party and litigator has always the right to appeal if it wishes, we are surprised that the DOJ has chosen to do so under these circumstances. We are ready to defend the court's decision at the D.C. Court of Appeals. So it's just amazing to hear from AT&T immediately on that. But this is definitely incredibly surprising because Judge Leon ruled so definitively just a month ago. He did not require any conditions on AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner, and the companies have already moved forward with their integration. Now, AT&T CEO Randall Stephenson previously has said that they were confident that they would win any appeal because of the judge's detailed and comprehensive rejection of the government's case to block the deal. Now, AT&T shares dropped about a 1.5% earlier. Now we see they're down just over 1%. But it'll be just fascinating to see what happens next. Now, Randall Stephenson is scheduled to sit down with me in an exclusive interview tomorrow morning on Squawk Box at 8:15 a.m. Eastern. My understanding is that he was flying into Sun Valley today. I'm not sure if he's on the ground already or heading in, but we can't wait to hear what he has to say about this surprise decision to appeal.
Now, the surprising thing about this whole thing, Julia, well, everything about this is surprising, really, I mean, to be honest, but the feds could have sought a stay after the ruling that would have prevented the deal from actually going through, and they did not seek a stay. And so for this to come a month plus later is just puzzling.
It is puzzling. There was a point when the ruling was coming that we were trying to evaluate what would happen in the ruling. And Judge Leon could have ruled in favor of this deal going through, but in such a way that would have really opened the door for an appeal. He could have required conditions. He could have enabled a stay. But the fact that there was no stay demanded at the time, no stay requested at the time, and it seems like Judge Leon was so definitive in his ruling that he would not have approved any sort of stay, there would not have been the possibility for stay, meant that the deal was considered almost sort of unanimous in its what it meant for the industry. And so remember what happened after Judge Leon's ruling. Comcast took that as an indication that they could go forward and make their official bid for Fox. So you had that Fox bid from Comcast. And talking to the media moguls here in Sun Valley, the folks here in Sun Valley say that that ruling definitively in favor of AT&T's acquisition of Time Warner is really seen as an endorsement of the potential for deals to go forward. We heard that from David Zaslav, the CEO of Discovery. We heard it from Steve Case, who of course did that epic AOL Time Warner deal 20 years ago. So I think everyone here will be shocked by this decision to appeal, especially now a month after Judge Leon's ruling.
This has got to be viewed as a setback in terms of Comcast's effort to win over Fox. I mean, with the shareholder vote, the Disney-Fox shareholder vote coming, on the 27th, there's not that much time to figure this all out.
Well, I think that this, I think you have to break apart the different things that are going on right now in the Fox, Disney, Comcast, Sky sort of battle/love triangle right now, because this really doesn't impact Sky. There's no regulatory impact on Sky, which is of course a UK company. It could potentially make Comcast even more interested in Sky because it could indicate that there would be regulatory roadblocks for Comcast in its pursuit of Fox. Now, of course, Disney already has that DOJ approval for Fox. This could support Rupert Murdoch's original comment that he thinks that Disney has more regulatory potential to be approved than Comcast does. So, because of course the Disney Fox deal's already been approved. Comcast may come back with another offer, but that could face regulatory roadblocks. And now, especially that we see this announcement of an appeal, it seems there's a higher likelihood of a regulatory roadblock than back when Judge Leon ruled so definitively in favor of consolidation in general. So I think the key thing is that AT&T Time Warner is a vertical merger. Comcast Fox would be a horizontal and also a vertical merger, but whereas with Disney, it's much more of just sort of Disney Fox that's already been appealed. So I think, I'm sorry, it's already been approved. Now that we have this appeal, I think a lot is called into question. But there's also the fact that Randall Stephenson said it directly. They don't think that an appeal has a shot because the judge was so definitive in his original ruling.
All right, Julia, thank you. Julia Boorstin in Sun Valley. Let's trade this. A couple issues here, of course. What does this mean for AT&T? That's most obvious. And then what does this mean for Comcast bid for Fox, which, I mean, that whole drama is still unfolding here.
I'll take the AT&T. And Tim and I are going to disagree. That's what makes markets. But I think AT&T's problems, the fact that the stock's lower, the stock is probably going lower anyway. I mean, Craig Moffett will come on. They have a debt problem. They have an earnings problem. There's no earnings growth. And they have a huge balance sheet problem. So you have to ask yourself, what's the right price for the stock? At a certain point, in my opinion, it becomes compelling. But I think Credit Suisse just put a $29 price tag. That's obviously lower than we are now. And I think that's where the trend continues. So I get this is a big news story, but I think it was trending that way lower anyway.
Doesn't this make the situation all that much worse? They're going to be entangled in another legal battle on top of what
it does,
problems
but I mean,
that they
look,
have.
AT&T stock has been damned if it does, damned if it doesn't on this. I mean, AT&T stock has been in free fall for the last 6 months, and even going back to the first announcement by the DOJ that they were going to pursue an antitrust. So to me, seeing the stock fall on this news is kind of crazy because the stock didn't rise when it got the approval. You're playing AT&T for two reasons. One, I think just the multiple at this point is so darn cheap. I totally agree with Guy that the balance sheet is one thing, the margins are another. Look, the wireless space is uber competitive right now, but I think these guys actually have a pathway to go straight to the consumer. And I believe in the vision, and I believe that they got these assets in Time Warner if this deal does go through, and we don't know that. Very, very cheap relative to what's going on in the rest of the sector.
What's your take?
Well, so many parts. First of all, I just can't even believe that they did it. And it makes me sort of, the conspiracy theorist in me wonders, all right, who really benefits from this? Well, Rupert Murdoch does if he wants to get a Fox-Disney deal done, given that this same DOJ has already approved their deal, right? So anything they can do to throw a roadblock in Comcast's way, great. Now, I don't know if he has that kind of power or not, who knows, but that just popped into my head. Also, it makes me think, okay, if Fox-Disney is more likely, then Comcast Sky is also more likely, which means Sky should probably not trade at the premium over their last bid that it currently does. I can't understand who. I don't know if it was the Solicitor General or who. Was it the president who ultimately made this decision to appeal on a case that was embarrassing in the first place because they were so resoundingly rejected?
The Solicitor
come back and do it again.
Was apparently the roadblock internally inside the DOJ that they needed to get to go after.
How did they get him on board? I don't know. It just makes no sense to me.
The whole thing's nuts. I mean, we're supposed to be in an environment where it's business friendly, and you've got lawsuit after lawsuit, DOJ coming in, appeals. It's insane. But let's just take AT&T and forget all the news and just look at the way it's traded and why you might want to buy it. You look at AT&T, $30, give or take 25 cents, has pretty much been the support level for a long time here. You've got a decent dividend. Yes, they've got debt. But if they can even just get a bit of growth, just a little bit of growth out of these deals and get some traction, then I actually think you've got a great risk reward here.
See, that's what DirecTV was supposed to do for them, and it doesn't seem like, It doesn't seem like that was ever monetized. If you look, I don't know exactly when that was announced, but here's a stock that's gone from basically $44 down to $32 in an environment where they should be doing a lot better, quite frankly, given the broader market and given what's going on in the space. So I understand what Tim is saying, but they might be damned if they do, damned if they don't at this point. The stock might just be trading lower regardless.
Right. Let's sort of go with the tentacles of this whole thing. Fox should trade lower, no? I mean, there's no more bidding war. If you game this out,
no more. It's just a little bit less likely. You got to pause a little bit if you're Comcast.
But then why would I know you just threw this out there as a conspiracy theory?
Yeah,
but why would Rupert? There's nothing good for his bottom line in terms of how much money he could get from a deal that might have a bidding war.
I think he would prefer a cash stock deal, right? Where he gets the tax benefits of having a stock deal, but enough cash to appease the shareholder base. And I think he would prefer to have Iger running the combined entity for the assets.
I guess, and that all makes a lot of sense. It's a smart thought, but I think ultimately he's driven by who's going to pay me more money for this asset. And
but after tax might be the same.
Stock versus cash is a relevant argument. But right now it looks like Fox Comcast had a lot more aggression to go after those Fox assets.
But even if you were open to the highest dollar for your company, wouldn't this make you question as to whether or not you can get regulatory approval, which would then, that would be a mark
Is $1 today or July 27th or whatever they could.
No question. And let's be clear. I mean, Comcast went into high gear the minute this AT&T Time Warner deal got resolved. So absolutely right. And what we've already said a few times today, it looks like Disney and Fox is a deal that the regulators are cool on. In fact, I think we knew that months ago.
Yeah, but to your point, I think what it does is it just throws cold water on any type of, merger friends or anything, because now you got to think about this again. Now, maybe this doesn't go through, probably doesn't, but at least you have to think about it. So it takes some of the premium off, some of these stocks. Again, I still keep going back. Look at how the stocks are trading. I would have rather seen all of these people buy some sort of esports, EA Games, Take-Two, something like that. That to me is where the growth is. I don't understand this whole thing. The whole deal is crazy to me.
But then you look for companies that are selling. What companies can stand on their own without M&A in the space? I think CBS on valuation still makes sense. It's had a huge run from 50 to basically 60 in a month and a half, and it's probably selling off in the aftermarket. But on valuation and a company that can stand on its own regardless, without all the M&A noise, I think if there's a sell-off in CBS, you buy that sell-off.
All right, well, let's bring in Craig Moffett from MoffettNathanson, who joins us now on the phone. Craig, thanks so much for phoning in on this breaking news. What's your take of what's going on here?
Well, I'm as surprised as everybody else. The decision was a resounding decision, and the judge went out of his way to say, "Don't bother to appeal this." And from what we understand, the Solicitor General was pushing back to the DOJ and was himself resistant to the idea of appealing the transaction. But look, there is a window here where you can argue a weakness in Judge Leon's ruling, and that is that Judge Leon effectively rejected the premise on its face that AT&T would take into consideration that it's an integrated company when it's negotiating a Turner programming agreement. And his logic was, well, the people at Comcast said that NBC doesn't take into account that they're owned by Comcast. They don't negotiate any differently, so why would it matter? And it's just not a terribly credible argument to say that an integrated company doesn't take into account that it's an integrated company. And if you reject that premise, I suppose there's at least a little sliver of a window to say that there's a basis for an appeal here. That has to be, at least my early guess is that has to be what they appeal. I don't know what their odds are, but that has to be the argument that they make.
Let's say that sliver becomes the wedge with which the feds are able to overturn the ruling. How does AT&T undo what's been done? Has there been a lot of integration? And ultimately, do you think AT&T is better off without the deal?
Well, it's funny. So first on the integration, remember when they closed this deal, they agreed with the DOJ that in return for not seeking a stay, they would keep the two assets separate until the DOJ formally decided whether they would appeal. So now the DOJ will have to make sure they don't start with the integration, but up to now they haven't really started the integration of the two companies, or at least supposedly they haven't started the integration. So that in itself shouldn't be too big a hurdle. Again, the real issue here is just the decision from Judge Leon was so definitive that I made one argument that they would make, but there aren't a lot of arguments you can make for appealing this case, and so it has to be a surprise. The second part of your question, which is, are they better off or worse off? I've always thought that they were better off for the income statement, but worse off for the balance sheet if they have Time Warner. And so whether you think the balance sheet is more important or the income statement is more important determines whether it's good news or bad news. The balance sheet has been dominating the conversation, and so like Guy, I was surprised that it didn't actually trade up a little bit after this announcement, because up to now people have been treating it as bad news.
So if you think that this decision is unlikely to be overturned, do you think that, where do you stand on how this might impact Comcast's bid for Fox? I
think the way you guys had it was exactly right, that This gives air cover to the Fox board to choose the Disney bid instead. That's what they want to do anyway. This just strengthens their hand in doing that, and so it is another nail in the coffin of any real chance for Comcast to get that asset. I think the market was already trading based on today's or last night's Comcast bid for Sky. I think the market was already trading the expectation that Comcast was all but out of it for Fox.
Right.
And I think now this is sort of the last nail in that coffin. So
right.
You're probably not going to see Comcast be able to do much more on Fox, is my guess. And now you have to just figure out how hard are they going to go to try to get Sky as a standalone, and then what happens in the fact that in the circumstance that in that case Disney would own part of Sky and Comcast would own the majority.
How quickly could this appeal take place, Craig, in your view, and will this stall any other potential media mergers that could be in the works? I mean, the Allen Company conference is going on right now in Sun Valley. I'm sure everybody's talking about who's going to buy whom or who I can sell this company to, and maybe that all gets stopped.
Yeah, remember, everything was frozen while the deal was pending, and for all intents and purposes, the deal is pending again. So it's not crazy to think that a lot of this stuff is going to be frozen. Again, with the exception of Fox, because they already have the green light at Fox to go forward, with Disney, that is. I don't know how quickly this could happen. I think you probably have the DOJ asking for at least a very expedited decision about whether the court will take the appeal. That you might be able to get done in a matter of weeks. But then if they take the appeal, how long it would take for the appeal to happen, I don't know.
All right. Craig, thank you so much. Great to have your analysis on this breaking news. Craig Moffett of MoffettNathanson.
I just think of Sun Valley as like a huge dance party, and
I know,
and
and all of a sudden
just showed up, and like
and
the music
stops,
stops,
yeah.
and somebody turned the lights on.
Yeah.
A whole
That
different
usually
time.
happens when I walk in.
Every night.
Everybody leaves.
What's your
Walks away.
okay? What's
What's
you
my
want to
trade
trade?
off the back of all? What's the most interesting trade out
Is there one right now? Maybe
yeah, I
there
think.
isn't
Well,
one.
I think this is probably. I mean, if Viacom was bid up on any of the takeover speculation, I think that hurts Viacom in a major way. But I think CBS, out of all the ones you look at, can stand on its own in this environment.
AT&T, just on valuation, it's a wireless company, better than Verizon. That's my view.
I'll go a little wild and say Lionsgate for the content.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.